Hello and welcome to that interview experience with me, Ash Taylor, and my co-host Helen Sanders. How are you, Helen?
I'm awesome, Ash. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. It's a good day, and we're joined today by I never get that. I never can work out whether it's with or by, but by Louisa Clarke. I'm going to stick with by. Helen's
Hmm.
going to work that one out. How are you, Louisa? Are you all right?
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Nice to be here.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. This is great. So, do you want to just tell people a little bit about what you do? So your kind of role. I know you're in the middle of transitioning from one role to another, and when you explain, you'll see why I'm not actually talking to you whilst I'm talking to you, kind of thing. But do you want to just explain what it is that you do? Because some of the
Yeah,
audience
sure.
here will know you, Louisa. I think that we're going to be.
Yes. So I work for an organisation called Buck Skills Hub, and it's our mission to work with schools in Buckinghamshire, but and beyond if we can, to really open young people's eyes to their futures. So we want to try and make their careers experience at school as rich as it possibly can be, and to break down those barriers between the world of work and the world of education. It's kind of our mission that if you think you know where you want to go, then you suddenly see the point of school. So that's what we want to do, is really just inspire and motivate young people.
Which is brilliant. So you dragged me in. I'm trying to think. It's a year ago, 18 months.
Yeah, so you volunteer specifically with the Beaconsfield School.
Yes.
And so we work with volunteers who are people in the world of business who have great connections, who are really passionate about working with young people. And that's you, Ash. You're one of a number of enterprise advisors who do just such a brilliant job of helping us to, as I say, connect schools with the world of work, so young people can find where they want to go.
Yeah, well, we do a great job because we have a great leader, or did, he says. So let's kick off. So when you've obviously sat in a position where you've been interviewing young people, and you enabled people to join your organization. So when you're on your side of the table and you've got a young person in front of you, what are you looking for in terms of their, I'm not even going to lead you, but what are you looking for in a young person when they're joining your organization?
Well, I actually have run a lot of practice interview sessions with schools where we give students the first opportunity to have an interview, if you like. Although we make it a really sort of friendly experience. The first thing I'm looking for in a young person is not someone who's completely polished and has had 10 years experience and X amount of qualifications. I really would like enthusiasm and positivity. For me, that's those two are the best things. And also combined with as much confidence as they can muster as well. Now, I know it's often really tricky for young people to be interviewed because it's a potentially a confrontational setting, and you don't know who it is you're talking to, and it's just frankly a bit weird. But if they can just relax a little bit, what is the worst that can happen? The worst that can possibly happen is that you might not get the job, and that's okay because it probably wasn't the right job for you anyway. But each one is adding to that experience. But if you treat each one as, okay, it's not your dream job, but you're just going to give it your all, then if that, as I say, that confidence and enthusiasm comes out, then I'm really happy as an interviewer.
Yeah, I've always
practice,
kind of,
isn't it?
Yeah, and I've always sort of treated interviews as an opportunity for performance orientated goals. So you're going to have a lot of interviews in your life, whether that's even if you run your own business. I interview all day. I'm interviewing prospective members, I'm interviewing suppliers. It might be in a non-formal way but quite relaxed, but every single one adds to your kind of your own personal experience bucket. So you just use it, what am I going to get out of when I go into this interview today, whether I get the job or not? What do I want to do really well? How do I want to perform really well? Is it the handshake? Is it the is it the eye contact? Is it that I'm going to answer every question without leading with the noise for example?
Yeah, the ums can be tricky, but I think ums are also, they show you thinking. The old um's fine. I think that's part and parcel of it. I think the other thing I really want when I'm interviewing young people, I want to remember you, and I need to enable to remember you. I need you to give me real examples. So if you start with a general question of, tell me your strengths, what are you good at, and someone says, oh, I'm really good at communication and leadership. Okay, everyone could potentially say that. How are you good at communication? And give me some examples of when you've led something. And in giving examples, suddenly I'm starting to build up a picture of who you are personally. I'm going to remember you, because if frankly you just sit in front of me and say, oh yeah, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, you just merge into the background. But if I can get a sense of your personality and who you are, and I can maybe get a sense that actually, yeah, I'd like to work with you. You're going to be a member of my team, and ultimately, I think really your interviewer wants to like you because they're looking at you as a prospective colleague. So I think that's another reason that hopefully young people should try and relax a little bit, because they want to know you, they want to know who you are as a person, and enjoy being you and try and get that across.
And not to be afraid of being themselves. So if I'm 17 and I'm really into volleyball or football or rugby, be happy to talk about what you're into. Be happy because you may not have any other experience apart from scouting or Girl Guides or whatever it is. And if I'm interviewing you, I want you to leave an impression with me. As you said, I want to emotionally have that connection. So if you talk about rugby in a way that makes me feel excited for you, I may not like rugby, but if I'm excited by your excitement of rugby, you've made an impression on me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So don't be afraid of being who you are.
Absolutely. As soon as you mention things like that, then there's little triggers going off in my brain thinking, oh, you like rugby? Okay, so you're probably a good team player. Oh, you also captain the team. That's interesting. You're also good at
leadership.
You're also good at strategy. Yeah. Oh, and you also coach some younger members of the team. These are all really great skills in the world of work. So, you might think that going to drama club on a Saturday morning is, your thing, but it's just a nice thing to do. But frankly, that's amazing. If you're good at drama, then you probably like being with other people. Your communication skills, they're going to be fantastic. You're good at presenting to people, and you're confident, and you're interesting as well. Tell me, what was your last production? Again, I'm going to go away remembering you and thinking, yeah, you're interesting, and you've just managed to develop all these skills. You might not have worked for 5 years as the executive producer on whatever it is, but I'm not expecting that. You're just leaving school, but so tell me what you are good at and help me to understand who you are.
So how do you before they sit in the room with you, before you have them across the table, and hopefully it's not across a table anymore, but alongside them, maybe you're sitting on a sofa or on Zoom, how do you separate the better CVs from the poor ones so that you can get them into that room with you? What are you looking for in the CV? What do you like to see? How do you get someone to say, through a piece of paper, hey, pick me?
Good question. For a start, it doesn't have to be 5 pages long. In fact, I'm not going to read it if it's 5 pages long.
Hallelujah.
one or 2 pages maximum. And I'd like it, I'm a bit of a detail freak. I'd like it to look nice. I'd like it to be readable. So that's the first thing I'm going to look at without even looking at the content. So I'm going to scan it. Does it look nice? It doesn't have to be fancy, but just laid out nice and simply, plainly, easy to read. And then I'm going to start looking at the content. So my eyes are automatically going to go up to the top. I like to have the quick profile summary of people. Not everybody puts this, but the 2 sentences maximum of who you are. To me, that's your opportunity to get your bit of your uniqueness over. That's your unique selling point. So who are you? I'm going to quickly look at that. What stage in your career are you at? And then, I'd like a quick look at your qualifications, but then I'm going to probably skip over those actually, because I'm kind of interested that you've done those, but we all should have those. Then I want really to get to your skills and abilities and real examples. As I say, it's going back to those examples. I don't want anything that's a generalization. I really want to see, okay, good at communication. I've done this, this, and this, or, achieved this project at school. We won a local competition to. So again, you've got real examples, and I'm going to take away who you are from that CV. And also it's going to probably want to leave me wanting to know a bit more about you as well. So I'm already thinking, now I'd like to follow that up and ask that in an interview. So I'm going to be a bit curious about you, because you've given me some really good little hooks into who you are.
That's interesting, because I think that's really, really relevant, not just for young people, but for young people to realize that that's a skill that has to stay with them whenever they interview for their, for life. Because my wife Kay, who's also been on this podcast, or will be, I think we've got her on in a couple of weeks' time, is she's just gone for a very senior role at her organization, and the feedback she got from her first interview was that she didn't give enough examples when she was answering the questions. And it was like, wow, so that this is gold, because it's something that actually you can put in your skills bank forever, not just as a 16. You use examples, tell stories, engage people, get them excited, bring them into your world, and show them how passionate you are about things, even if it's not that relevant. The passion and the excitement that you can bring says a lot about you as a person, and we want to work with exciting people.
I think what you said about stories is really good as well. We all love a story. That's it. Stories are interesting. Stories are what make the world go round. So think about an interview or your CV as telling your personal story. And again, you're trying to draw in that the person who's interviewing you or looking at your CV to make them want to know more about your story. I think that's a really good way of looking at it.
Yeah, that's cool.
What about the interview itself? What would your favourite question be, do you think?
I don't know if I have a favourite question. Every single interview,
got a whole ream of questions.
I think every single interview I've had has been, really quite different. I think you tend to follow. You do tend to get drawn in by the first. I think if it's a nice interview, that you'll get sort of drawn in by a nice initial question to sort of just tell me a little bit about yourself and to get sort of settled into the situation. But then I think usually there's some kind of question in there about how you'd maybe tackle an issue that this particular team of people have to deal with all the time. So I think actually beforehand you can have a think about the sorts of issues and tasks that you're going to be asked to cover, and have a response that actually ready in the bag, so that you can sort of look through their eyes and see how you might need to perform. I think that's really handy. I think also trying to work in as much as possible so that you can demonstrate that you've done your research and you know this company. So there might actually be sort of quite general questions, but I think if you can sort of turn it around and use it as an opportunity to show off what you've found out about them and their company, I think that's a really good way of doing it. So you don't have to always take the questions at face value and just do a straight reply. I think you're constantly trying to, and I think this comes with a bit of practice as well, but just show that you've done your research and you're really interested in them as a company. Even if it's not your dream job, try and create the best possible impression that you can. Be keen, be really keen, because I think above everything, that's going to be something that they really value.
And also, and you've said a couple of times, it may not be your dream job. And I always try, as a recruiter, I want everyone who interviews to have a good experience, because it's nerve-wracking as it is, regardless of your age. Absolutely, at any point in your career, interviews, by their very nature, because they're called interviews, there's a job at stake. But actually, the outcome isn't the job itself necessarily. It's A, what you learn from it, B, that it's practice. And you never know, if you're 18, your paths might cross with that person again. They may move companies. You may be interviewed by them in 3 years' time when you're 21 and you've got 3 years' experience. Yeah. And I want them to remember you for the right reasons, So it's about, yes, this is an opportunity for now. There's a job potentially, but there could be an even greater opportunity down the road. So say thank you after the interview. Email them afterwards. Thank them for their time, because you never know where that's going to lead.
Yeah, I think that's where LinkedIn comes in as well, because hopefully you've looked them up beforehand. Certainly afterwards, you can try and make them a connection and see if you can retain some of that professional relationship with them. You might not have got the job, but who knows when something else similar might come up. Or as you say, you might not be right for that job, but actually they might know someone who then knows somebody else who thinks that you're right for that job.
Absolutely.
So I think you're right, Helen. You always want to create the best possible impression you can for the future.
Yeah, so the interview experience could be really seen as just an opportunity to network.
Yeah,
you go into
that's all it is.
that this is just I'm meeting someone for a coffee and I'm going to network, and we might do business together, we might not, but it doesn't mean that we won't do business together in the future. You potentially you can settle it in your mind like that. It's perhaps a little bit less daunting. But can you give us, because we talked about stories earlier, can you give us an example of a question you've asked? Can you think of a question you've asked where you've been either blown away or kind of shocked by the answer that you've had from somebody?
Ooh,
Go for shocked. Go for shocked. Yes. Yeah. I want the answer that had you just. Yeah. Sorry about that. It's an interview, Louisa, so we're putting you on the spot.
Yeah, I was actually interviewing a group of students. We had like a group networking session, and I was asking them all the same question. And I said to them, I want to be able to remember you. I said, I don't know any of your names. I've never met you before. But by the time I go out of this room, I want to be able to say, you're the person who does this. You're the person who does that. And I remember because you're the. And I thought I'd set them a bit of a tall target, if I'm honest. But the answers I got back were just astonishing. So one person had decided to learn, I think it was, I can't remember which language it was now, but it wasn't one of the more obvious languages. And she just decided she was going to do a YouTube course, and she taught herself all the basics of this language. So she said, oh yeah, I speak this language. Then the next person came up, and then the next person came up, and they all dredged from their minds this skill that they had, that they taught themselves. And literally half an hour later, I walked out of that room and I could tell you who they all were. And yet we'd started with them just saying, oh yeah, I'm good at communication. Wow. And I didn't remember any of them. So I think it was going back to that, being able to tease out of people who they are, what they're good at, what they're passionate about. And I think you might not think that it's particularly amazing, but actually young people are amazing. I think because you do something all the time, you don't always realize that actually it's an amazing thing. So I was really blown away by, I think, the answers I got just to that fairly basic question, tell me who you are, tell me who you really are. And I think it's just a bit of a lesson that you do need to open up, think about who you are, what you do, and goes back to those, have some great examples to hand.
I think that's such a powerful anecdote for people listening, because as adults we forget the value we have and that we've created and built, because we take it for granted. So I have skills that I take for granted, but people look at me and go, oh my God, how do you do that? And I was speaking to a young person a couple of days ago. She's a national champion in a sport, highly skilled, 17 years old, and was just not able to say that she had any value. Well, I'm not very good at this, and I don't like this. And I'm like, you're a national champion in a sport. I'm looking at you going, oh my God, that's incredible. It's an incredibly difficult sport. And oh yeah, but I just do that every day. That's just easy, isn't it? And I think we forget the value we bring, and we take so much of our skill sets that other people would perceive as being special, and we take them for granted. And I think young people especially miss that opportunity to share what they take for granted, because they take it for granted. But a prospective employer would see that as something very special.
Yeah, definitely. I think, just thinking back to my own interview experiences, when I think this was going for my second job, so I was in my early 20s, and it was going for a job at Penguin Books, which I worked in publishing at the time, and Penguin was the one I really wanted to work for. So I was really quite nervous going into this. It was on 27 Wrights Lane in High Street, Kensington, I can still remember. Wow. And my interviewer said, it was going really well, it was all fine. And then she said, it was for a marketing job, tell me about a campaign that you've seen on the tube on your way in this morning. Now, I got the tube twice a day, and I'd got the tube twice a day for the last 2 years. Could I think of one on the spot that and no, I couldn't, frankly, and nothing I could do would turn that light in on my head. And I just had to say, I'm really sorry. I travel on the tube every day. I look at adverts all the time, and I can't think of one at the moment. and I went out of that interview thinking, oh, right, I've completely blown it. And you know what? I didn't. I got the job, and I think I obviously must have done well at the rest of the interview. But that one question I completely failed at. Maybe because I was honest, maybe because I didn't fall to pieces just because I hadn't been able to answer the question. It was still okay. And
let's not forget, I don't think they were asking you actually about that marketing campaign or a marketing campaign. They were seeing how you coped. Every question you're asked in an interview is, how do you cope with that interview question?
Yeah, not the answer.
So the fact that you were honest, it's not really, it is the answer, but it's not the answer. The fact that you were honest, whereas you could just given you could have made it up, but you would have been found out at that point. So yeah, you didn't fail, and you can't fail at an interview just because you don't get a job or do get a job. It's all practice, it's all learning, it's all about opportunities.
Yeah.
So that's a really tricky question,
if
isn't it?
you do wheel out a killer question and you can't answer it, again, it gets back to what I said at the beginning. What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
So
being clever, I might have said, do you know what? I can't remember any adverts on the tubes, but I'm sure if I'd seen a penguin advert, I'd have remembered.
Well, clearly all the ones after that were brilliant and everyone remembered them.
Of course, because you got the job.
Louisa, thank you so much for coming in and sharing your experience and insight into that interview experience. I know it's going to be really useful for people watching.
Really welcome.
This episode itself will have a vast audience because of the influence
Absolutely.
having out there. With you. Massive thank you for coming in. It was really, really good chatting to you.
Really welcome. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.